I'm Leslie Butt, and this is my submission for the International Women's Day readings. I've been considering the theme of break the bias quite a lot in these last couple of weeks. I've basically concluded that a lot of my work, especially my recent novel Tanked, as well as most of my poetry, does have an element of being able to discuss the hard things. Domestic violence, poverty, rape culture is a huge one that I take on, mental illness, and just the things that are disproportionately difficult for women. Especially to this piece is called Already Dead. It is a spoken word poem that I wrote during the attendance of the Canadian Festival of Spoken Word, which was in Ottawa, I believe in 2010. And this is just kind of a recurring theme throughout my life, unfortunately, but trying to break the cycle on top of breaking the bias. Because people always ask, oh, why don't you leave? Or, domestic violence isn't that easy to explain. It's like you're slowly getting pieces of yourself taken away little by little, so much that you're left with a shell and you believe every word that you're told about yourself or what he tells other people or what you've been taught to believe. It's a hard place to be. It's a harder place to leave. And I commend anyone that can. And there is hope. There is so much hope. You're never alone. All right, this is Already Dead. I tried to help you. I wanted, yes, I really wanted, more than anything, in fact, to rid your mind of those demons that haunted you for all these years. To rid your mind of the thoughts that told you, I am not good enough. I will never accomplish much. I am afraid of love. But I couldn't change that terrible fate. The part of your soul that had too many names. The pull of the drugs that thought you'd be okay. It was too late when I realized only you could change you. I have filled book after book of poems inspired by you. None of them have really been about you. They have been about the things I wish I never knew because of you, in spite of the truth. Now my own demons take their cue. This cue doesn't sink any 8 balls. It only makes me dream of a nasal drip and that lovely Salvation 8 ball that slowly takes away the thoughts and dreams you made me forget. I've told a story of your acts and your imagination, how you could create such putrid and disgusting names for me, how your strength was one I could never beat, but those thousands of words were actually about me. I haven't thought of those other things, fearing the songs they would make me sing, like how your eyes were that blue-green of Greek oceans that nobody else could see, because if they ever got close enough for you to take off your glasses, they would sting and puncture anyone's life's wings. And I knew I was already dead. You cried so loudly as I walked out that door. Your tears filled an ocean that week. Somehow they ceased to fill me. Like some nights I remember I'd wake up and you'd be stroking my face with those greased up marijuana hands, wondering just where in the stars and heavens you ever deserved such luck. My anger made you angry. When I smiled, you smiled with me, but when I cried because of you, it was the biggest irony. I was the one that told you it was okay to cry and held you as a sob shook the mountaintops that we drove our ATVs on. But my love was not enough to fix you, and the rock of me cracked beneath that pounding feet. That old wooden shack, a place destroyed by you, a center of so many tainted memories, a dwelling too smoky to see through with its wood stove. We cut so much wood that winter to be warm, but no matter how many logs we threw on the fire, by the time we'd wake up, the tea would always be frozen over. Fights too hard we tried to change, eyes we pleaded with to stay the same or to save us from ourselves. Maybe it was just that one morning like any other. Maybe it was the words and actions you should never really say to another, things that should be reserved for your lover. The moment I realized you'd never wash a dish, make no money, and think with your... It's day by day. It's pretty hard to forget 5 Christmases, 4 calendars, and 14 provinces. All those nights of whispered promises. Who now will ever love me? Who is this girl that is so free that sings Judy Garland in the shower off key? But I do know one thing. I was the only one to ever get close enough to see those blue-green ocean eyes, far beneath those forgotten dreams. And by the time I got that close, I knew I was already dead.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Harrington. Harrington, and I'm in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and I'm originally from Marystown, Newfoundland. I write creative nonfiction, poetry, and fiction, and I'm currently querying publishers for my first short story collection, Coming Apart. This piece is called Showdown at the OK Car Lot in response to the Breaking the Bias theme. I entered the car dealership jittery with sweating palms, but I couldn't put it off any longer. My husband and I had just spent a long weekend in the Cape Breton Highlands when we should have been admiring the undulating mountains of fall colors and cobalt blue ocean views. We were watching our hazard lights blinking on the roadside while our brakes cooled down. They were overheating as I eased us down the mountains, the rotors warping and thrumming alarmingly. The sun glinted off my rust-spotted red hatchback as Dan poured bottles of water under the wheel wells. He was thanked by hisses and plumes of steam as the brakes cooled down. And this wasn't the first vacation my Honda Fit had thrown a wrench into. It's time for a new car, Lindsay. I have a bad track record when it comes to buying cars, though. There was the featureless, overpriced Ford Ranger I bought as a fresh-faced 21-year-old feminist. I thought I had all the answers. I didn't need anyone's help. Only I did. I didn't know a thing about cars. I didn't know what I needed or what was possible. I didn't negotiate a dime off the price. I didn't know to ask for winter mats or tires as a throw-in. I didn't ask any questions about the financing, which, of course, had exorbitant rates. I assumed my salesman, and I use that word deliberately, had my best interest at heart. As I struggled to roll down the windows on the highway at the height of summer, I realized otherwise. At 25, I decided it was time for an upgrade. This time, I recognized my weaknesses and asked my drug-dealing, cheating boyfriend to help me. He never showed up and didn't answer my texts. So I circled cars nervously, peering under hoods and kicking tires, asking what I hoped were intelligent questions. I texted my father and 2 or 3 other guy friends, trying to figure out if I was getting a good deal or a lemon. Online, I looked at comparative models, but it all looked like hieroglyphics to me. Spoiler alert, I had paid too much for the Honda. It had too many kilometers on it, and when the summer rolled around, the advertised air conditioning was busted. So you can understand I was gun shy, but eager to get things right this third time around. I spent time thinking about what I wanted and needed. I asked friends who were into cars and researched models and prices in the consumer reports. I checked at the banks about interest rates. I was prepared. But my armor of preparedness was dented as soon as the over-air-conditioned air of the showroom hit me in the face. "Are you behavin'?" the male dealership manager called out as the automatic doors glided shut behind me. I think so? Haha, just fooling around. What can I do for you? I explained that I needed a new used car, a small SUV, something safe, reliable, and definitely with air conditioning. He assured me Paul could help me out and called him over. "Right this way, honey," Paul called behind him as he strode out to the lot. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and followed behind him. "This car would be great for a chick like you," Paul enthused, smacking the roof with his meaty palm. "Look, I know you're trying to be nice, but can you stop with the chick and honey stuff? How many kilometers does it have on it?" 30,000. "Lots of space for your kids back here too." "I don't have any children." "Listen, what's your full name for the paperwork?" "Well, it's Hewitt or Harrington. I got married this year and I'm in the process of changing it." "That's a good girl." A few minutes later, I made my excuses and stormed over to my Honda, with a face to match its red exterior. I slammed the door and peeled out of the lot, already composing a harshly written email in my head. But I didn't want to act rashly. I took the evening to reflect and decided a phone call would be best. The manager who had asked me if I was behaving downplayed his own comment. "I'm sorry you felt that way," he said, which, for the record, is not an apology. I would ask any woman or man if they were behaving. He was oblivious to the greater context at play, the power dynamics and knowledge gap my past experiences layered on, the disadvantage I felt stepping into his world. Of more concern to him were the words of his employee. "I'll be speaking to him," he assured me. Not 5 minutes later, my phone started pinging. Ping, ping, ping. Texts from Paul started flooding in. "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. Sure, I'm married, you know, and I say love all the time with no offense intended to the lady I'm speaking with. I don't even remember calling you chick, and I don't remember you asking me to stop. So, what is it you're apologizing for?" I texted back. He wasn't sure. Casual sexism and infantilizing were not a part of his vocabulary, like alternator and transmission weren't a part of mine. I clicked off my phone and tried to decide what to do next. When I talked to my father about it, he agreed with the salesman. "Mate, I think you're making something of nothing." The next day, I bought a car at another lot, and I typed up that email I had composed in my head and clicked send, addressed to the dealership owner. "Hello, I'm writing to express my concern about the language used at your dealership on Thursday, October 1st. During my hour there, I had 5 concerning comments directed at me. Each of these on their own was offensive, but when added together in such a short time, it was even more troubling. I asked for staff training and a donation to a relevant charity as reparation. A week later, the female business successor reached out to me. Jackie shared her struggles of working in a male-dominated industry, the negative comments she'd received from coworkers and clients, and her work in dismantling the systemic oppressions every day. They were already a supporter of my suggested charity. She wrote, "I'm not glad that you experienced what you did. I am glad that it was brought to our attention so that we can address this and the fabric of our work culture. Casual sexism has no place within our walls." She organized formal meetings about inclusivity and sensitivity at every dealership in their group. She emailed me later to tell me about the changes she was noticing as a result. It may not be much, but I think it was one small win in breaking the bias. And in the meantime, I'm glad I won't have to buy a car for a very long time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon King-Campbell. I am a playwright and a poet and a woman and a member of the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador based in St. John's, Newfoundland. And happy International Women's Day. I am here to read you a few pieces of mine that work to break the bias on women in society as we know it and experience it. Over the past several years, I have been working on the idea that the stories that are at the very root of our society are shaping our society so effectively that unlearning the lessons that those stories teach us is really difficult. So as a writer, I've been working on speaking in the voices of some of the women who appear in the Bible as one of those founding stories, or a collection of founding stories. So I'm going to read you 3 pieces that appear in This Is How It Is, which is my first book of poems. And The first one is in the voice of Sarah, who appears in the Old Testament. She is married to Abraham and is the mother of Isaac. And if you don't know the story, God asks Abraham to sacrifice Isaac to him, and Abraham does not consult Sarah in the making of that decision. Sarah, who laughed and could not stop. They thought I was glad, but I was only laughing. These 3 men, messengers who said I'd have a child, I nearly 90. They must be joking. I nursing? I in the sweat of it, fingers tightened around hands or bedposts, as though they could contain the pain. I, my body withered by something growing there. The laughter boiled up and overflowed into the room, into the faces of those men, their grinning faces. The others thought it funny, too. They laughed when they heard the old man and woman had a baby. They did not believe. My husband could never stand for doubters. We invited them in with their children, and I nursed them, too, to prove his point. Everyone's eyes on my nipples, sucked by every child for miles. Some of them had teeth already. My son passed around with reverence like the miracle he was. When the command came down, the men set out with my boy into the wilderness. They never said a word. I heard the news days later. A stranger came into my house to say my son was killed. I left, went looking for survivors. I crossed borders. And then I heard, no, he is alive. And that poison laughter poured from my mouth and streamed from my eyes, and I lay down laughing, far from home. The next piece is for Delilah, who is also in the Old Testament. And Delilah is the woman who takes down Samson, who is the hero of the Israelites in his story. Samson had supernatural strength that relied on his never having cut his hair. And Delilah took him down and delivered him to his enemies in their story. So here is what I've written for her. Delilah, who felt his head light as anything. The razor running dry across his scalp. I pull the curl back from his forehead, black and thick and damp, and as the blade cuts through each hair, it coils in my hand, lithe as the bowstrings he told me would bind him. That was a lie. He snapped them, easy as a thread brought close to flame. The ropes, too, and the weaving. I ruined my work with his braided hair, had to throw it away. I am careful with his skin. No razor ever touched him here before. The red bumps are already rising. He moves to scratch, still sleeping, settles on his other side. I grasp the hair at nape of neck the way I do, my palm against his skin. I'm humming something to him mothers sing to little boys. I think of his old mother, the gift he is to her. I kiss the spot behind his ear, and roughness of his shearing grates my lips. When the final strand springs free, he is transformed. I see him smaller, almost, softer than before. His ears stand out from his head. I cradle his bare scalp in one hand. I feel his neck relax. They're coming. So I shake him, warn him, but he wakes, bleary, stumbling, and they catch him, hold the arms that yesterday could burst through chains. They push him down, knees into his own slaughtered curls. He understands then, and his eyes meet mine before they tear them out. Without them, he can't look at me like that. They leave the doors swinging behind them, their silver shining on the floor. His hairs blow across my ankles, in under the bed. They scratch my feet. I sweep them up, hair and silver together, but still I'll find them. A twisted strand is knit into my sheets. Another I've inhaled. It catches in my throat. And finally, this piece is for Salome. Salome appears in the New Testament, and she is the princess who orders the execution of John the Baptist. So not the hero of her story either. Salome, who found a rhythm all her own. They call on me to dance. Slick with their staring, I oblige them. What else could I do? A room of them, drunk. They play their drums, and I lift up my arms, my hips. The drum is in control. In our palace prison, a man resists, refuses food, eats the ticks that cling to filthy camel skin he wears instead of clothing. The insects visit him. They say he thanks them before crunching their tiny bodies. They say their broken legs get stuck between his teeth. My mother watches my serpentine arms, or is not watching, eyes blank behind her irises. She's done all this before. She taught me how to move. Their fingers twitch with longing. They all shift on their benches, the king the most. My mother's lover wanting me, and we both know he takes the things he wants. The drums are beating faster now, and so do I. My bare feet smooth from filing off all the pieces of skin that were dead, hairs torn out of my toes. And in the dungeon, the man who blames my mother for the regent's sin scratches at his fur-covered chest and pulls a louse off of a wiry hair there before eating it. I stop. The drum stops too. A skipped heartbeat. I can hear their hearts beat. When I dance again, they follow. I am conducting now. They take their cues off of my jangling ankles and my wrists, and so I speed them up, their tight skins ringing out the thrum of the pulse in the king's throat, and I control them with my legs and arms and hips and breasts and eyes and hairless toes that spin me over and over in their minds and chests and groins. My mother never taught me this, and when I crack the whip of my glance to his face in conclusion, he groans an earthquake out of him, and he says, anything. He says it so the rest of them can hear. I do a final turn around the room, inhale the musk of my discovered power. In a new voice, I ask for his head. When they bring it to me, I am sheathed in silk, my body sharp and smooth and fatal as a knife. His hair and beard are longer than his neck, a locust shell still in his rotting mouth. Thanks for watching. Happy International Women's Day.